Hey guys, welcome to Geared Forwards. My name's Paul and today we'll be taking a look at the Leatherman Bond, one of the newer offerings from Leatherman released in 2021. This offers a budget-friendly option as well as a UK legal option and perhaps in other restrictive countries as well. So let's start off with a size comparison, and we'll start off with the Swiss comparison. Here it is next to a 91mm Swiss Army knife, that is the compact, and a 58, that is a classic. So as you can see, compared to a normal size Swiss Army knife, it's not much larger. But let's compare it to more of its brethren. So here we have the Leatherman Skeletal. Similar in overall length, particularly because the Leatherman has that carabiner and bit. If the bit wasn't installed and the carabiner wasn't there, the overall length would be much smaller. And now to its closest neighbours, the Leatherman Wave and the Leatherman Rebar. Now this tool is essentially an amalgamation of these other tools, and we'll get into that a little bit more later. First of all, let's go into a tool overview. So this is a plier based multi-tool, and out of the box you will get it as it is, along with a nylon sheath. The sheath itself is a generic sheath that comes with a lot of different Leathermans nowadays, and it ends up being a little too large for the Bond. So you've got a lot of space there, and whilst this is elastic, it will close back down. There is also a lot more give. This will accommodate a much thicker tool. I personally like these sheaths, but it's not my personal choice if I were to carry this on my belt. As this is of similar size and construction to the Rebar, you can, if you want, purchase separately a leather sheath that fits the Rebar that will also fit the Bond. Which we'll have to put outside. As you can see, that fits there. You are going to have to struggle to pull down a little bit at first just to make that popper close, and you probably won't be having this guy on there. So this is actually one of my preferred ways to carry the Leatherman Bond, and it is a pocket clip, the same that you find on the Leatherman Free series, specifically the likes of the Free T4 or the Free P4. You do have to buy this separately, unlike the Leatherman Curl, so the tool itself is around £50, and then the clip is an additional £5, or your equivalent dollar amounts. It's quite a nice deep carry clip. You are going to have the rivet side up protruding from your pocket, but that's not too much of a problem. And the screws are largely just recessed into the metal of the clip itself. Nice and countersunk there. So that is my preferred way to carry it, but adding all of that additional bulk and thickness can make it trickier if you want to alternate between sheaths. Something else you can do is as well use a slip like this, where it complements quite nicely. This is actually how I would normally carry my Rebar along with the Victorinox Explorer, and the Bond just slotted in there very nicely, the clip helping keep it in place and making this an entirely UK legal carry. As far as tools go, we have, of course, the pliers. Now, this is the same plier head as an older generation Leatherman Wave. So we have non-replaceable cutters. Close up on there. As well as needle nose pliers. And if you want to get in and tweak on a nut or a bolt, your normal pipe grip. Coming on over to the other side, we do have a knife blade. Now this is the same blade that is in the Leatherman Rebar. However, what makes this UK legal is this change right here. Instead of having the locking tabs of the Rebar, this has a spring put out. So this is a non-locking blade. However, if you want a bit more of a safety conscious or an ergonomic feel, when it's closed up like this, there's no way for this to actually close on your fingers. So if you push down on that, you're going to find that this cutout hits the other handle and your hand is perfectly safe. You can actually use this for a bit of angled cutting if you want. And overall, I wouldn't be that concerned about the tools on this collapsing at all. The spring is quite strong. The knife blade is of course under 3 inches for UK legality. And we'll stay in the same handle, shall we? So here we have the Leatherman combo tool. So we have a combination bottle opener and can opener, and a wire stripper and scorer. And then next to that is a square shank Phillips. Now it's a little bit of a shame that we don't have a bit driver on this tool, but by having the square shank Phillips it will accept bit adapters. Leatherman sell their own version of this in a small kit, but a lot of cheaper multi-tools actually come with their own kits with adapters that will work just as well. Again, even really pushing down on this, I wouldn't be too concerned about it collapsing. See if you can hear that. It is really a strong retention in the string. Coming on to the overside, and we have a file with a slightly annoying little lanyard ring. So we have a single cut file, a cross cut file, and a metal saw. This is overall a rather aggressive file and saw, and I quite like it. It's not as nice as having a diamond file option, but that is quite unusual, and I have used the rebar file quite extensively, and this will work exactly the same. Coming on over, we do have the lanyard ring that came out previously, as well as 2 different size flathead, which can be used for prying and scraping tasks as well as an awl and reamer. The tool loadout is overall very similar to the rebar, obviously missing more tools. And one thing to note is that as it is an older generation wave plier head, we don't have a crimper down here. At least I don't think. So we've been referring to the rebar a lot. Let's go in for a bit more of comparison. As you can see, the handles share a lot of the same DNA. Got that bend in the top here, the same cutout for the blade. However, as it only has one blade, it only has one cutout. And of course, no locking tabs, instead we have springs. And the ruler has moved from on the top of the handles to the side of the handles, which gives you an overall much cleaner look, more familiar of the original Leatherman PST or Pocket Survival tool. This is really going to be your closest comparison. Now the comparison does include the Wave because it does use its older plier head. Just bring out the rebar plier head to show you the difference there. See, the original Wave plier head is a lot more sleek, a lot more needle nose, and lacks the replaceable cutters. But overall, this is not the kind of tool that you would be using for hard work regularly, in my opinion. If you're going to do something like that, then it would of course be advisable to use replaceable cutters or a dedicated set of cutters. Now, one thing to talk about in regards to the knife is something that circulated more around the launch of the Bond, and that is a safety concern people had of the knife coming out. So mine actually does this, and it's just that there's no spring tension here whatsoever. The spring doesn't actually get engaged up until this point, so as there's no detent, that blade can come out. Now, I cut myself day one with my rebar, and I can tell you that these knives are very... They tend to come very sharp, and they will quite happily cut you. However, this is not a problem in my personal experience and opinion. This has been fixed now, I believe. There is a tool change. However, I bought this tool in February of 2022, apologies. And this is actually an old production. I bought this from Haney. But if you actually look inside, you can see that this is actually dated February 2021. So this is an old production and doesn't have the fix. This isn't a problem in how I use pliers. So how I would personally do this is with 2 fingers in and 2 fingers out to manipulate the pliers like this. And then no matter what side you're holding it, the knife doesn't really have the space to come out. It's either touching the meat of my hand or my fingers. Even when you like do something like this and flick it open, you do get a small rise there, but that's only a little bit of the knife tip and it is quite high up. So if you do end up picking up a second-hand bond, or you end up with an old production model like myself from buying new, this is not something that I would be particularly concerned about, and it would just require just being aware that it's there to completely nullify any threat. And if you use this with safety gloves, then it's nothing to worry about at all. So that is an overview of the Leatherman bond, but what do I think about it? Well, I'm overall very happy with it. It is a lot slimmer, a lot lighter, and compared to the rebar, it does get rid of a lot of the tools that I don't personally use often. There for the thickness comparison. So you lose the serrated blade and you lose the saw. I don't use either of those things often. I much prefer a plain edge blade. However, they are things that I would like included on a more heavy duty or all-encompassing tool, which is what I consider the rebar to be. I consider this to be the cover all, incidents you might come across in if you're going to do housework, or, if you're not entirely sure what you're going to come across and you can legally do so, I would carry the rebar instead. However, just for EDC tasks, the bond covers all that well, and it benefits a lot from the lighter weight and the thinness. I will say that, and this might just be because mine is an old production that clearly sat in inventory for a long time. When I originally got it, it was incredibly hard to open. The joints and the springs were stiff to the point that it was uncomfortable to use. Now that has loosened up significantly. None of my other Leathermans had this degree of a problem. My wave was nowhere near as tight as this is now when it was brand new, and as you can see, that's just a lot softer. This did break in, and it will break in more. However, I did find myself actively just playing with it like this to just loosen up and smooth out those joints, as well as the same with the spring. The spring is very strong, which is good for those that have a bit of a fear of slip joint tools and are concerned about collapsing. I wouldn't be concerned about that anyway, because you're either going to be using a tool folded up. Let me get a driver out to illustrate for this for you. With a small flathead out. You're either going to be using the tool with folded like this, at which point the only way this can collapse on you is if you have choked up on the screwdriver, at which point it doesn't really have much to go, or there's not much travel to build up force there. Or you're going to be using it probably in a T-handle shape like this, so you can just get a bit more torque. But when you're using it like this, you're nowhere near the screwdriver. You can see there's no way for that to collapse and hurt whatsoever. I would not be concerned with any of the tools. The only part of concern that would be the knife, because it's a much longer tool. It could close and hurt you if you were using the knife improperly. If you were concerned about a slip joint knife, then just don't ever find yourself using it like this. This is not how you should hold this tool. The spring is strong enough that I am satisfied that it wouldn't just, you see that's quite a lot of resistance. I'm happy that it wouldn't spontaneously close. and when you use it as it should, it's not a concern. The tightness will continue to wear out as I use the tool more, and for what it is, which is meant to be a lighter, more legal carry in some places, I like this. It's a strong showing from the more budget arm of Leatherman, and whilst I was initially disappointed when it was released in the sense that this is not innovation, this is a wave and a rebar smashed together to look like a PST. That's all this really is. Whilst it's not innovation, it is filling a market hole, in my opinion. The PST does not have an analog up until this came out. This is legal for people to carry. The option to have a pocket clip has made it more carryable and more open to a lot of people. A lot of people don't want to carry a loose pocket tool, they don't want to have a suspension clip from a lanyard, and they don't want to end up with, you know, different kinds of pouches on their belt. I think this suits its niche very well. The only thing that I wish it did include was I wish there was an option to get the pocket clip with it, so you just didn't have to source it separately. However, the price is so negligible and the overall price of the tool is low enough that I'm happy enough for that. So, can I recommend the Leatherman Bond? Yes, in a heartbeat, especially if you're looking for a non-locking folding knife. Now, if you want something heavier duty, or if you work in something like construction, you might want something else, but that is not what this is intended for. So I hope you've enjoyed this overview and review of the Leatherman Bond, and if you are interested in more tools like this, you want to see pictures, you want to have your purchases validated and somebody to blame when the credit card bill comes in, go ahead and head over to multitool.org. It's a great community of people where you can find out all kinds of information and get recommendations on tools that might fit you. I'm not affiliated with multitool.org other than being a user there, and I've appreciated their help, camaraderie, and general sense of community. So my name is Paul, this is Geared Forwards, and I'll see you in the next video.